Hey, Stephanie, how's it going?
Pretty good.
It's another episode of Fixing Your Agile Coaching. A lot of great comments have been coming in. Really excited that people have been liking, subscribing, and doing all those great YouTube things that we're supposed to mention as good hosts. So like, subscribe, smash that like button, leave us comments, give us a thumbs up, do all that fun stuff. Tell your friends about all the awesome things that Stephanie's sharing on this show. And I think they'll get a lot out of it. So I'm professional Scrum trainer Ryan Ripley. This is professional Scrum trainer and coaching extraordinaire Stephanie Ackerman. We have another topic today, Stephanie. I think this is a really fun one. I like thinking about this kind of stuff because we have to get, what I like about this framing is, it's beyond the Scrum and complementary Agile practices. So I can't just sit here and say, well, story mapping would be good. And, or go read, Stephanie's book on being a professional Scrum Master, and then check out Jeff Watts' book, and then maybe read my book. And like, we can't just live in that comfortable bubble, right? So we're popping that bubble. And what we're saying is, other than that stuff, Scrum and Agile stuff, what are the other knowledge, skills, ideas, all the things that we need to be an effective Scrum Master? So where does your mind go with this? If we take the Scrum and Agile stuff out of play, if we take the comfortable stuff out, where do you typically drift to?
Yeah, so many things come to mind here, and I was trying to think about where would I start? And I think the first place is listening skills.
Yeah.
Communication skills broadly, but you almost have to start with listening skills. So really getting to be a deep listener, but it's bigger than that too. It's like a really good observer, right? Like a neutral observer where you're just kind of picking up on stuff that's happening around and, getting curious about it, right? So listening, I think, is such an important skill. And observation, being able to kind of pull in and see different things and make connections. So I would start with listening, and then it kind of comes into your personal leadership skills, which maybe emotional intelligence is the best place to start there, right? Self-awareness, self-management, empathy, and the actual social skills around being able to effectively engage with people based on understanding them better.
Yeah, I think this is a good start, and I typically drift in a different direction, right? So I actually, when I was, and I'm still learning, and so I don't want it to sound like I have completed my Scrum Master journey. I don't want it to come across like that at all, because I'm still. You can't see my desk, and I'm not going to switch views because it's a mess, but it's littered with stacks of books. I'd imagine
I see a stack of books right over your shoulder.
Yeah. So I'm constantly and that is a read stack. So that stack we'll get through at some point.
Mine's on the floor over here.
Yeah. And so we're constantly digging. I'm going to have to throw some caveats on this. What I found early on in my Scrum Master career, that relationship books were so foundational. And there's one that there's a book called Love and Respect. And so for those out there that are worried about my marriage or all of that, it's like Kristen and I are doing great. We have a very strong marriage. We're very happy. And I think she would agree. But the book itself really talks about how to get out of these kind of vicious cycles of poor communication, relating poorly to others, and how really it talks about the maturity of people. And what I liked is when you read books like this, because I'm not saying that developers and the product owners, they're not all married on a Scrum team, but you're spending more time with these people than you do with your family in many cases, right? And so you start seeing some dynamics occur where this person won't speak up and that person is angry but holding it in. And these books they give you tools. At least they give you better questions to ask. And so maybe I kind of drift in that space. What good question could I ask to reveal? And I don't know, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I love that. And what you're reminding me is, I have a whole collection of Brene Brown books on my bookshelf, right? Yep. And so a lot of that, it is around ourselves, but it's around how we engage with others, right? It's how we are hearing what they're saying to us, how we are showing up with them, and where maybe that coming from a place of, I know she's done a lot of work around vulnerability that people are aware of, right? Where is this coming from? So yeah, like definitely those have been some of the most powerful things that have helped me be a better listener and try to understand, like, how am I being perceived? How am I perceiving this other person that may or may not be fair? Right.
Yeah.
You know, and then how do we come into this with like a greater level of mutual, like, respect and love, quite frankly. Like, you know, we don't use that word a lot, but it's like, I love people and I love engaging with people and I want people to feel loved and I want them to feel I deeply care about them. And I want to feel like they deeply care about me and appreciate me. So yeah, like I love that. There is so much great work out there. And I frequently go back and reread my Brene Brown books. They've been very fundamental for me. Yeah, I'm curious. Do you keep going back to that book as well?
Yeah. So there's a handful of
Read
books.
that one.
Yeah, it's I'll send it out to you. And
Yeah.
I've got multiple copies. Because what I do is I rec books. So I'll highlight and I write and I take my own notes but then I don't know about you, but I have like this roster of books that I reread every year. And so the fact that I'm buying new books is crazy because so I found this advice. I think it was actually, it came from Augustine. This was like from a guy a theologian that lived in 100 to, I was like somewhere 100, it was more like 200 or 300 AD. And he basically had this practice. There were certain books that he would these are cherished. You should reread them because you don't have time to read every book in the world. So you got to find the good ones, but above all else, read. That was kind of that's a poor paraphrasing of a lot of his thoughts there. But, that really struck me. And I was like, maybe I should like pick out 5 or 6 books that so Secrets of Consulting by Weinberg is one that I have to check back into. Love and Respect is another one. There's a handful of books and maybe that's a skill, just discerning good knowledge and information and making sure it's front and center at all times, right?
Yeah, I love that. Right. It's that like ability to integrate.
Yeah.
Not just read a book to read a book and like plow through them. I'm actually a really slow reader. And part of it, like, I mean, I think we're all different in that capacity, but like, I know that it's going to take me a while to make it through a book of that, like a nonfiction book where I'm like truly trying to integrate and understand, like, how does this connect to what I already know? And then how am I going to like actually embed this way of thinking into how I'm showing up? And then how can I tangibly practice this? And I love that, like just that ability to integrate your learning and the discernment of, is this helpful? Maybe it's not. So I'm going to let that go. And then, but this other thing, like I see how that can help me be better with XYZ.
Yep.
Right. And then you truly integrate that.
It's almost like you're creating your own theory. And that's what I like too. And to the other book discussion real quick, what I have found too, and I didn't realize you could do this until later in life. You can just stop reading a book that's not helpful. You can quit. It's like, and I used to plow on because I start and it's like, this isn't, toss it. Life's too short, right?
Yeah.
But I think as we start reading and listening to podcasts and watching videos like this, we start building up a theory of what we believe around, Scrum Masters and teams and relationships and people and organizations. And I think that's an important skill too. Can you build up your own theory and challenge that and refine it instead of just parroting what thought leaders have been saying, right? I think that's a huge skill.
And it's the evolution of it, right? Like knowing it's always evolving and it is built upon by great thought leaders, but it's built upon also by my experience and how I'm making it my own and creating my own meaning with it, but also not being too attached to any of it, right? And that's part of the evolution. Yeah. Love that.
Yeah. Something else that, as far as like a skill or knowledge, I've been really going back to the classics. Like I'm a big fan of just logic and maybe like looking at some of like a classical education. Like, can we go back to like Aristotle or Plato or, one's a dog, one's a philosopher. So,
both can be valid.
Both are valid. Right. But I mean, just basic, like logic and reason, and that, I think that can lead to discernment. And
Discernment.
so, I mean,
That's the word. Yeah, discernment was in my head.
and so I think that's probably a weird answer, but I think how many of us actually took a logic course in school? And
I
so
did, and I loved it.
I know, right? But it also taught us our fallacies in our thinking and our biases. And so I think some of that, a skill, back to that word discernment, but we can build that up through like more classical topics, right?
Yeah, I love that. And like, it doesn't have to be about product development or, like product, like, anything related to the work we do. Like, we can pull from other sources and integrate those concepts, into this worldview or this life theory that we continue to evolve and work. Yeah. I do want to come back to like, there are some actual like tangible skills that I know as a Scrum Master, like I really had to like quickly grow when it was like, I was okay, but I recognized like, oh, I need to up my game. When it comes to facilitation skills.
Yep.
And what I want to point out is we all just learned in the past 15 months or so, like the way I did it before is probably not enough. And I need to now up my game in terms of how do I facilitate in this new virtual world where we're tiny little boxes, right? So I think that's an area where like you're always changing. You're always looking at like, how do I get better at facilitating, given I'm working with different humans who have different needs and our problems that we're dealing with are changing over time. And, sometimes I'm very focused on a small team. And then sometimes I need to help wide scale in an organization, maybe facilitate larger, complex, cross-impacting organizational challenges. And how do I facilitate, like 50 plus people? So I think there's always like room to grow. Facilitation is a key skill, but what that looks like, so many things come up there. And I think that's one that I've always been like challenged and been like, oh, wait, I need to grow here.
Yeah. And I think part of that, and I don't know if it's knowledge or a skill or a blend of both, is almost like a fearlessness. Right. Because when it comes to learning facilitation, for example, you have too many options. You could do liberating structures. You could use training from the back of the room. You could use learning 3.0 ideas. I mean, there's endless theories. And so go try something and be willing to have it go sideways and trust yourself to correct it. So that's a skill, right? I think believing that you have the ability to correct whatever crazy situation is going on. If you facilitate in a wrong way, pause and say, hey, I'm really sorry. That went sideways. Can we restart? And let's go again. And not have that concern that, and I'm not sure if that's knowledge or a skill, but just that ability to say, well, that didn't go great. What's next? And
what you're describing, I think, is a whole nother skill set. It's this ability to truly deeply reflect on ourselves, right? And be, objective and, be able to mine it for learning and then choose like, okay, what am I going to do now? It might have just gone awry and that just was the situation, right? But I'm able to reflect and discern and decide, okay, that's just, I learned something. Okay, probably not going to try that in this scenario again. But maybe it's about, that was my first time trying it. So I obviously didn't do it perfectly or great, right? Like, so what can I do differently next time? How can I apply that learning as quickly as possible? Just being able to reflect and learn and grow yourself is a huge aspect of this ability to like, don't be afraid to fail, like try something, see what happens. And for me, like, I don't know if I'll be curious to know your answer here. I really feel like I developed that skill when I really went down the path of coaching skills. Like when I went down the path of like recognizing, so this is a whole other skill set we didn't name yet, that I need to level up my coaching skills. And so I went into, kind of professional coaching training, and you're getting coached while you're learning coaching. I mean, that's kind of like how the curriculum works. And that aspect of like getting coached, like really that idea of like self-reflection and like having somebody help you see different things and helping challenge your assumptions and your beliefs and show you other possibilities that, and actually help you tap more into what you want and what's important to you. Like that all grows your fearlessness, right? It all grows your ability to navigate the complexity of life.
Yeah, I've never gone down the professional coaching path, right? It's just not something that, that I mean, I hope I have many more years here. Maybe I'll get there.
So how
For
did you
me,
get fearless?
um, I just, I hit a certain point in my career where I was just okay with my badge not working, or it just, at a certain point, and I don't know when it is. If you were to ask me what the date and time, I don't know, but I hit a certain proficiency or level in my career where I was like, this is going to be okay, regardless of how this works out. Like, this one moment is not going to decide whether or not I can feed my family. Or, I mean, I'm married very well, and my wife is perfectly capable. I mean, at some point you just hit this moment where it's like, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I got there, or how I was given that. I just, and then from that point forward, it was just, we're going to try things. We're going to be more interesting in the work. I'm going to take more risks because I think people deserve our best. And if we're doing the tried and true and safe, we're going to get more of the same. So at some point, I just realized I can't be effective in the Scrum Master role unless I'm a little more fearless. I'm not saying reckless.
Right.
I'm saying, but willing to try something, willing to be wrong, willing to fail, because I know I can recover. I trust myself to be able to recover.
Well, and what I love there is you're really just saying you just truly embraced and embodied agility.
Right.
Right. It's like taking it that step further where we're no longer just talking about it and teaching it. It's like your life experience has shown you that, like, oh, wait, this is real. And it doesn't just apply to product development. It doesn't just apply to my Scrum team. It doesn't just apply at work even.
How many bad decisions do we make in life because we're worried about being a little uncomfortable?
Yeah, other people might think.
Right. And that's what really hit me. There are very few decisions in life or work that I've personally made, I can't speak for anyone else, that would have detrimentally wrecked my life. Very few decisions. I mean, there's been a handful where if it had gone the wrong way, things would be really, really bad. But those are very few and far between. And once you realize what you're really worried about is a little discomfort, I think that's freeing.
Yeah. So it's like that knowing yourself again, right? Like that kind of like looking around and being like, what is this stuff that like is put on me from society that's not really mine, and I'm just gonna like put it over here, and wait a second, like it's a little more freeing. And so it's sort of like just stepping in. It's like the more self-knowledge and self-awareness and like that just grows your self-trust, right? And your world, it kind of also comes back to that discernment lens around like, is this mine, or is this like some fear that is probably very low percentage likely to happen, right?
Yeah. And I think once we get there, we then have the opportunity to be principled. And when we become principled, right, when we truly believe in something and we want to live that out, and we want to live that truth that we've locked onto, I think everything else falls into place. And so I think, no, go ahead.
Well, you were just bringing it full circle for me around like, that helps you be an effective Scrum Master because people they trust you. They want to follow you because you're principled, and they believe that you want what's best for them, and that you believe that we're all going to be able to navigate. We're going to figure it out together. Like we're it's that feeling, right? When you truly become that amazing go-to Scrum Master. And it comes like, what I love that this whole conversation has reminded me of is you can practice these skills anytime, right? It's you can practice a lot of these skills outside of the actual Scrum Master role. And so like, let's take advantage of those opportunities. And it doesn't just make us better Scrum Masters. It makes us better humans. It makes us better. It makes us feel better about living life, right?
Well, and I think when we actually approach people in this way, marriages, relationships, the way we interact with our kids, with our nieces and nephews, whatever interactions you have, they all improve. Right? They just become more meaningful. And when you can actually show up in a principled, empowered type of way, I just think the love is easier, forgiveness is easier, grace is easier, because we're all just messed up human beings, who need those things. and it just flows a little easier when we pick up these skills that we've kind of built through. But it's almost like these skills lead to kind of like a transformation, or the opportunity for a transformation in ourselves that then lead to greater things. And so that's, I think, hopefully that makes sense, or maybe we've gone too philosophical, but I don't know the time or place where I got, and I'm not done. I'm still a messed up human being that screws all this up and causes fights and does messy things. And but each day we try to get a little better.
Yep.
So maybe patience, forgiveness, right? Not beating yourself up, or skills too, but eventually I think we get there.
Absolutely. I love where we took it, because, a lot of times there is this desire to like, give me the checklist and I'm going to go learn this. I'm going to check it off. I'm going to go learn this. I'm going to check it off. And, like, sure, we could go down that path a little bit, but a lot of this is just being aware about how we're living life and learning through life. And, it comes back ultimately to servant leadership. Right? Like, everything we've been talking about is about servant leadership. And that's why the Scrum Master role, we've often talked about it as a servant leader role. And when we show up that way in life, it brings a lot of great things to us.
Yeah, it's amazing what's possible when you're not the most important person in the room. It really is crazy, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, and if you really want to dig into this stuff, check out Greenleaf's work. Mm-hmm. I think Robert Greenleaf back in '72 published a paper on servant leadership. He used the greatest model of servant leadership who's ever lived as a basis of his paper. And I think if you really dig into that, you're going to find some a really interesting way to approach people in life. So maybe that's the great skill there too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, Stephanie, I think we took this in a fun direction. Thank you for that. I hope that this was helpful. Please be sure to like and subscribe. Check out the socials. Oh, wait a minute. I also forgot. So we're back. AgileSocks.com. Be sure to check out Stephanie's stuff. Great cohorts, classes, self-guided, self-paced learning, videos, blog posts. She's got a lot of great stuff out there that I'm sure will help with these skill questions, that will help with. I think what we're talking about here is really a maturity journey through these skills and practices as a Scrum Master. And she's got a lot of great material on that. So be sure to check out AgileSocks.com for all of these offerings that Stephanie has. Now we're going to shift back to the end plate. Like and subscribe. Check out the videos below. I'm going to leave it at that. Just a fun conversation. We hope you liked it. Let us know in the comments. Helpful, not helpful. What could we talk about next time? And for Stephanie Ackerman, I am Ryan Ripley. Go out there and fix your Agile coaching.